Joining us this week for Enemy Sidelines presented by Microsoft Teams, it is Pittsburgh Steelers team reporter, Missi Matthews. So happy to have you. I've talked to you, Missi, at the Pro Bowl. It seems very weird now that we're in season and this is how things are conducted. But how's it been for you? How's 2020 been covering the Steelers?
It's been a little different, I think, as is the case for everybody, even the players and coaches. We normally go away for training camp and everybody stays in dorm rooms. It's a very intimate setting, team building, as Coach Tomlin likes to call it. That obviously did not happen this year. The Steelers, for the first time in over 50 years, practiced at Heinz Field. So it was just, very different like everybody is experiencing, but definitely happy that football is being played and that we are rolling through the season.
I know, and it's exciting matchup here in week 3. I think obviously the big storyline is going to be the Watt family reunion. So pretty much any point in the game you can turn it on and you're going to see a Watt brother on the field, whether it's Texans defense, Steelers defense, even Derek Watt on special teams. So I know you've had a chance to catch up with Derek and TJ up there in Pittsburgh. Is the excitement level like 100 on a scale of 1 to 10 for the Watt brothers getting to see JJ on the field this week?
Well, I mean, I definitely think for them it's special. They are the younger brothers. They've played together, Derek and TJ, that is, in high school. They played in college together. They're now experiencing it in the NFL. So it is, similar to them, but to have 3 brothers in one game, it hasn't happened since 1927 until last year. We actually had the Edmonds brothers, 3 of them. 2 on the Steelers, 1 on the Buffalo Bills, play in the same game. But I just think when you think of the Watt family, you think of JJ first. And I think for TJ, as soon as the Steelers drafted him, it was, I don't want to be known as JJ's little brother. I want to create my own name. And I think it is fair to say, and you would probably even agree, that TJ has done so. But when the Steelers did sign Derek this offseason, I had a chance to Skype with the 2 of them together. They were back home in Wisconsin. You could tell they were just like, we don't want to do this. It's just like, we're here to play football. We want to talk about the game. It's not so much about, the brother thing, but it is a big deal. And, I can imagine for their parents what a special moment that will be. And definitely, I know, we've talked to Mrs. Watt before. I'm sure she's going to want the photo of the 3 of them in their NFL uniforms hanging up in a nice big picture frame in their house.
I'm sure it's going to be such a special moment for her. JJ gets asked about it all the time, and, I just love seeing the banter between him and his brothers on Twitter. As far as TJ making a name for himself, he certainly has done that just in the win against Denver last week. He put up some pretty good numbers, 2.5 sacks, 2.5 TFLs, 4 quarterback hits. He's going to face Deshaun Watson for the first time in his career because the last time these 2 teams met, Deshaun was already on IR. So let me throw a next-gen stat to you presented by AWS. The Steelers rank 2nd in the NFL with 10 sacks through the first 2 weeks of the season. They trail only Washington, who has 11. So tell me about the Steelers defense. They're always tough. They're always physical. What has really stood out to you this year about them?
How fast they're playing. The communication, you can tell that was a step from 2019 just to this point. I know it's only 2 games, but they have a core group of guys who made such strides last season, and they are back. Mika Fitzpatrick finally had a full offseason, even though it was virtual, with the Steelers defense. And, TJ always says, we want to play fast, we want to be physical, and we're not hiding the fact that we are going to come after your quarterback. Coach Tomlin even said after this game that, other than the field corners, we're going to bring anybody at any time, and that's their game. And they're not ashamed, to say that out loud and to let you know that they're going to bring it. Even just the substitutions in terms of the depth among the defense. Coach Tomlin was talking about that in his weekly press conference. To be able to play the way they are, to blitz so much, you have to be able to rotate guys in to give people breaks. There was a series during the Giants in week 1 where it was 18 or 19 plays, and you could just tell the defense was like, all right, Cam Hayward ended up getting an interception of Daniel Jones, but still it's, for the game that they are playing on defense, they definitely need some extra bodies. TJ and Bud Dupree both come off a little bit, and some of the other guys are rotating in for them just to let them breathe, and then they come back on and they bring the heat.
Well, Ben Roethlisberger, I can't believe I'm saying this. He's in year 17. It seems like he was gone a really long time after last year's season-ending elbow injury, but he's back. We've heard talks about him retiring or not retiring, but here he is. It's week 3. He's already put up 5 touchdowns to just 1 interception. What have you seen from Big Ben in his return he looks healthy coming off the injury. But, how has it been for him having just such a weird offseason and not really being able to get back to work on the field until the season started?
Yeah, I think it's just getting a chance to reacclimate himself with some of the wide receivers or tight ends that he knew prior to getting injured of week 2 of 2019, like JuJu Smith-Schuster, Vance McDonald. But for some of the new guys, Deonte Johnson's in his second year, Chase Claypool, the rookie that the Steelers took in the second round this year out of Notre Dame. I think it's just getting timing down with those guys. After the game against the Broncos, Ben, every question, it was, what can the offense do better? It's like, well, I have to play better. Our defense bailed us out. He was very hard on himself and said, our guys in terms of the wide receivers, they were in the right spot. I wasn't hitting them on some of them. He threw an interception that I think he knew that ball should not have been thrown. So I think it's just getting some of that timing down. I think his arm, the strength, that's not what people are worrying about. Coach Tomlin even said this week, just knocking up some more of that rust as they get going here in the season.
Well, we heard so much about him wanting to retire. Can you give any insight as to what sort of went into that decision to stick with the Steelers and come back for year 17?
He actually did a little YouTube docu-series chronicling his surgery, the decision to have the surgery last year. And he has said it numerous times this year. It's like, I knew this was a special team, especially with the way the defense played last year. I think it was a different perspective for Ben watching from the sidelines. After he had surgery, I mean, they were literally taking stitches out of his arm after watching this docu-series inside Heinz Field, and he's coming out on the sidelines to help be there for the team last year. So he even said that was such a different perspective of watching football and knowing that you can't play, and yeah, you can help when a guy comes to the sideline, but that's pretty much it. So Ben is still taking that. I'm going to take it year to year, but he still has another year left on his contract. So I don't think we're going to have to worry about any retirement talk anytime soon.
Well, he's already got his favorite 2 targets. It seems like their chemistry is coming along really nicely just in these first few weeks. JuJu Smith-Schuster and Deonte Johnson, you mentioned them. Those 2 have been such big targets for him, but they seem very different in their role in the offense. What makes them so unique?
Well, I think JuJu is kind of coming into his own. Last year was definitely a down year for him. Of course, the Steelers played 3 different quarterbacks. You go in thinking you have Ben Roethlisberger. We saw what JuJu was able to do his rookie year. And JuJu was in the same draft class as TJ Watt and James Conner. And those guys they got started early in their careers. And it's crazy to think that this is year 4 for them. But Deonte Johnson, that is the one that I'm very interested in seeing, because Ben has said some pretty high praises for him. Obviously did not get to work with him more than 6 quarters last year, but Deonte wasn't playing as much his rookie year. So I do think they're kind of figuring it out, and Ben has really spread the ball out nicely. Chase Claypool is now getting involved. We saw his 84-yard touchdown against the Broncos in week 2. And even the tight ends, Eric Ebron is somebody the Steelers signed in free agents. That's kind of a big free agent signing for the Steelers, who typically like to build through the draft. So I think Ben and Ebron are probably still getting on the same page too as well.
All right, tell me about this run game, because we know of James Conner, but Benny Snell's also in there, and it seems like their numbers are pretty identical. They've each had 22 carries through the first 2 weeks. Is that something that you foresee the Steelers doing moving forward, having a 2-back set out there, or do you see one of them becoming a 3-down back as the season progresses?
Well, Coach Tomlin has always said he likes to have a bell cow, and that has been James Conner. Now, he did get hurt week 1 in the Giants game. That's when Benny Snell stepped in. He did have a fumble, though, week 1 and week 2, and for a second-year guy, that's obviously not something you want to be dealing with, just in terms of his confidence. We did see some Benny Snell in week 2, but it was mainly James Conner. He's the one that scored the touchdown. He had a great 59-yard run to really seal the game against the Broncos after Terrell Edmunds' interception. So I think it's still going to be James Conner moving forward. I think Benny Snell has shown he can be the guy that can tote the ball, but again, with those fumbles, that's something, the ball security you have to work on, and I don't think you're going to get as many opportunities now that it's been 2 fumbles in 2 games.
All right, I saw in week 1 Zach Banner going down, and it seemed like he had done a lot to win that starting job at right tackle, but what does that loss mean to the team? How do they find someone to step up in his place, and what's that been like so far, losing Banner?
Well, it was a pretty tight race in between Zach Banner and Chuks Okorafor for that right tackle spot. They moved Matt Filer, who was there last year. He's now playing left guard. So in terms of losing Banner, I guess the silver lining in it is that he's a good team guy. He's a big personality. He's well liked amongst everybody. But Chooks and him were really in a fight for that job. It really came down to that final few days before we really head into Labor Day and the week one preparations, where Coach Tomlin announced Banner as the starter. And he said the entire time that both guys were starter capable. So I guess in that sense, you have a good backup there. But Dave DeCastro has not practiced at all in week 1 or 2. Hopefully going to start practicing here in week 3. We'll see if he's able to go against the Texans. That'd be huge for the Steelers offensive line. They started a rookie there this past week in week 2 in Kevin Dotson. Stefan Wisniewski, another offseason signing. He was brought in to add depth. He kind of was filling in for DeCastro. Spent a lot of time there at right guard during training camp, but then he got hurt as well. So now he is on IR. So even in terms of the run game, as you were asking me before, there's been a lot of shuffling on O-line. So hopefully DeCastro can come back to the Steelers at some point. They did not put him on IR. He just hasn't been practicing, hasn't been active on game day. But yeah, for Chooks Okorafor, you didn't get the job initially, but football injuries change everything. So hopefully he can do well there at the right tackle spot.
All right, Missi, how about for you heading into week 3? What are some of the big storylines you're working on for the Steelers?
Well, hopefully going to be doing a sit down with Joe Hayden. He picked up his first interception last week against the Broncos. He's just one of those veteran guys on the defense. He just has that personality about him that really draws the younger guys to him. It was just crazy to think back. I remember our 4th preseason game. We were down in Carolina getting ready to face the Panthers, and Cleveland cut him and the Steelers picked him up. And, he played with Marquise Pouncey at Florida. He had some of those connections, and it was just crazy what he was able to do with his career. But I really want to see what the Steelers defense this week does in terms of preparing to face Deshaun Watson. I think compared to the first 2 quarterbacks, 3 quarterbacks, the Denver game they faced too, Coach said it's going to be a ridiculous challenge to stop him in all areas of his game. So for the Steelers defense, they've looked great the first 2 weeks. They definitely got a little sloppy in terms of penalties week 2, but yeah, I want to see them go against Deshaun Watson and to see, I think this is a really good test to see where the Steelers 2020 defense is.
We'll be looking forward to the matchup. Missi Matthews, team reporter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Missi, always appreciate the time, and let's catch up soon.
Yes, I love that.